I am excited today to talk about how using AI isn't the same as building with AI. If you think about it, clicking accept on a Copilot suggestion is not AI fluency. And I really feel that the professionals who matter in 5 years aren't the ones who used AI, they're the ones who built with it.
Gabe, I totally agree with you. And I think, every week we talk about something new with AI here. And just this weekend, I saw that Claude, or Anthropic specifically, had posted on their Instagram story a caption like, "What did you build this week?" And now it's everyone responding with what they've built with AI. But we've gone beyond these simple queries I think we talked about even a year ago to people building actual applications, actual cloud infrastructure as well. And it's been very cool, very fun to follow along.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you're telling me that the top three apps on the App Store, I think, are ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini in some order right now. I was curious to hear your perspective on this. It's interesting seeing those three still at the top of the list, and I'm curious if we're at almost another phase of AI adoption here. You know, the AI's obviously been, it's been out for a few years. It's been progressing very rapidly. My gosh, Claude is or Anthropic, I guess, specifically with their Claude solution. Boy, those guys ship a lot of stuff, man. I mean, goodness gracious, it is just a lot of content that is coming out of them, and a lot of really good features and functions.
Every
day, there's something new. But anyway, I'm curious, like, do you think we're in this next phase of adoption, or like, why are we seeing, those three apps at the top of the App Store?
Three and a half things. Number one is, you mentioned in the top of the podcast here, clicking accept on a Copilot suggestion. Who's using Copilot in 2026? I mean,
I'm still using it, man.
what a way to get left behind there. But the other there is, I can't help but think Apple's looking at these top apps in the App Store, Claude, Gemini, in that order, and realizing that they want to be a part of that as well. They have totally failed on the Apple Intelligence side. And even Gabe, I was telling you this morning, I thought I had this driving thought the other day where I was like, man, like, I was trying to figure out like what county a specific license plate was. And of course I asked Siri, got nothing, but Siri's like, "Do you want me to ask ChatGPT?" And I'm like, I could have just started there, or I could have just started in Gemini. So I just know Apple wants to tap into that market. But I think it's really interesting. I still think ChatGPT has that first mover advantage. I don't really use ChatGPT anymore. I can't think of a reason why I would use it other than my Claude limit being, maxed out for the week. But I've been a big fan of Anthropic here to actually build and create. And then I use Gemini to learn, to find things out. And I think with Google and Gemini, I mean, that's just a natural progression there. But with something like Claude that's only been out for 4.5, 5 years, it's every day something new. And my hypothesis there is that they are using their product to build their product. And every day, Gabe, we kind of joke about it, something new. We talk about the CEO of OpenAI, checking his Twitter feed to see what Anthropic has come out with that day. And it's not to say that ChatGPT or Codex or anything like that is bad per se, but when you start to move beyond like the simple prompts, the simple queries, to building, how can I fix this? Or I have this problem in my job, or I do this routine task. That's where I've seen Claude excel at building things, the cloud infrastructure as well. Last night I made a Teams app in about 20 minutes, which we should talk about sometime. I made it as a joke, and now it's a thing. But here we are, Gabe. And
I feel like some of your best things have been jokes turned into actual products, like your LinkedIn.
I don't think we even talked about the LinkedIn one.
I don't think we ever did. So we should talk about this really quick. So I sent Zach this joke that I saw on Twitter, and then he ran with it even further. But the joke was basically you could input something. It was Google Translate for LinkedIn. So it would take any input and then translate it to an insane, like, LinkedIn lunatics style post. It made me laugh so hard. There's just been we've had way too much fun with that.
It's been a good one, but it uses the Gemini API, of course. But like, you could say, like, today I went and got ice cream, and it would translate it to, I was walking downtown on the sidewalk and I stopped and saw and blah, blah, blah. Turns into this huge cringy LinkedIn story. Which if you listen to the podcast, you know, Gabe and I just can't stand. Yes, we can tell you're using AI. Yes, I don't want to say this to be mean, but I really don't care about your family life or, you know, personal issues on LinkedIn and how it opened your eyes to B2B sales. That's just a different conversation there. But then the most recent one, Gabe, was the Teams plugin of voting to kick someone out of a meeting. And like I said, it started out as a joke. These are very odd use cases here for AI building things. Gabe, I know you've been busy building things in Claude as well.
Yeah,
Maybe
for
more
sure.
useful tools.
I mean, kicking somebody out of a Teams meeting seems like a really useful tool. I'm sure
Could we kick someone out of the podcast? Like we haven't had that issue yet, but now I'm wondering.
Yeah, for real. Hopefully, I don't get booted out of the podcast. Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this topic a little bit more today and talk specifically about some of this idea of building versus just prompting. And the crux of this really, Zach, was I was thinking about how people explain their expertise on their resume. And one of the things that always drives me completely insane as I'm reading through resumes, and I've read through, oh my gosh, I don't even know, hundreds, if not thousands at this point over my career, is people always describe themselves as a Microsoft Excel expert. And it just really bothers me because I'm really, as we've talked about many times on the podcast, I'm really good at Excel. I'm really good at Excel because I've used it a lot over a long period of time. And I wouldn't even consider myself an expert because I don't write VBA code. Like there's a whole bunch of Excel functionality that I just don't use. So I would consider myself towards the top end of, functional people in Excel. And I, again, don't even consider myself an expert. So when I see Microsoft Excel expert on a resume, it just kind of irks me, especially if you can't answer a very basic question like, what's the difference between VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP? And if you can't answer that, then I'm sorry, you are nowhere close to an expert. But it got me thinking about the future and what people are going to start to put on their resumes around AI and AI fluency. And, AI expert is going to start to, really start to make its way onto resumes here in the near future. And are those going to be people who are actually building? Or are they people who are just using AI and the tools that they are given every day, Microsoft Excel, Salesforce, or Microsoft Office in general, Salesforce, these types of solutions. So that was really the jumping off point for this, Zach, because I was just already pre-annoyed about what I was going to start seeing on resumes in the future.
Well, we won't even have to talk about the directional use cases of XLOOKUP versus VLOOKUP or pivot tables. I do have to say though, like I feel like Microsoft Office is such table stakes on a resume, like these business applications. Could I put like Apple numbers? I'm proficient in Apple numbers. Would that help my resume, Gabe, do you think?
Definitely will not. It drives me insane when I go to like download a CSV file and I click on it and it opens in numbers and I'm just like, man, I forgot to open with. I really got to go back and change the default.
Whenever I get a new Apple product, the first thing I delete is numbers, pages, and Keynote or whatever their slides. I think we can all agree Apple has that, or not Apple, Microsoft has the business application space locked down, and for a good reason.
Yes,
and Gabe, I know we have a colleague here that likes to start trouble. Probably listening to this podcast. I'm talking about switching to things like Google Workspace and like Google Docs, Google Slides. Man, I'm a Microsoft stan there. But Gabe, to the whole AI conversation here, I think you're spot on here. Anyone can go to ChatGPT and type in a query or ask a question. Anyone can do that in Copilot. But what happens next is, well, what can you actually build with this, right? Like, so what? Like, what can you do beyond a simple query?
Mm-hmm. And who are the people that are going to become more valuable and visible over time versus the ones that plateau? And to me, this distinction is very clear. It's people who are using AI are going to be the ones who plateau. People who are building with AI are going to be the ones who continue to progress and continue to become much more valuable in their careers. And I wanted to talk through a specific example here, Zach. I had a situation come up over just this past week that, again, made me realize why building is so important, but also made me realize how some companies are going to be in a really tough spot as they move forward with how they generate revenue, especially services revenue. So the the quick background on this was we've been talking about building a new ROI model for a specific set of solutions that we sell here at Calix. And we had reached out to a vendor. They had given us a statement of work to build this model and start to integrate it into some tools that we already use. They wanted $25,000 for that project. I've been a bit frustrated with how we're doing this process. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to go into Claude and I'm going to build something different. I'm going to build a website-based ROI tool that creates an ROI. It's all self-contained in this website where you can talk to the customer about the value, you can input the information from them, and it will give you an ROI at the end of it. It's very succinct, very slick. That took me probably 2 hours. So in 2 hours, I created something that a company wanted to charge us $25,000 for. And, I'm not trying to say like, oh, SaaS apocalypse, right? Where, people are going to go start vibe coding Salesforce and, run that company out of business. That's not realistic. But these types of organizations who are looking for services revenue are going to be in a really tough spot going forward when there are people inside of the company that have better context than they do and the capability now with something like Claude to go off and actually do that in a very rapid way. I'm not exaggerating that it took me 2 hours, and that might even be a little bit too much of a buffer on the time.
And you turned around and sold it for 10,000, right?
Exactly. No, I'm a good corporate citizen, so I'm handing this over for free. But yeah, no, seriously, but the context piece of this is what matters, and I think this is probably a good lead into the next topic we wanted to discuss. But it's that because I have the context of the solution, of our systems, of our processes, I can build something that's very unique, and I don't have a technical limitation anymore. That's the part that I get so excited about, Zach, I think you've seen this too in the stuff that you're building, is all of a sudden the fact that you don't know how to write very specific pieces of code, it doesn't matter. The ideas that you have in your brain can now become actual solutions because that technical bit has been removed.
I mean, at the top of the podcast, Gabe, you mentioned like VBO and Excel or VBA. I got my terms. I got my VBO and my VBA mixed up here. Even then, I'm thinking like, oh gosh, like I wonder how good Claude would be at this, or how good would these tools? Because my expertise in that level is I know enough to be dangerous. Emphasis on the word dangerous there. But if I can not only use that to build a tool in your case, but also move faster. The way we've done this in the past is you spend, a couple days on YouTube researching this and learning how other people are doing it, and then go from there. Whereas now, if you have that foundational knowledge enough to be dangerous, you can build these fully functional apps.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Yeah, and again, this kind of leads us into the next topic that we wanted to discuss, which is this is something that we discussed with Charlene Lee when we did the episode with her a few months ago. And it was I thought this was a really interesting conversation. And now that we're again getting into more of this discussion around building, I think it's a good opportunity to bring it back up. And that was there's kind of an easy narrative here where you can say, well, young people are more enthusiastic about using AI, so they're going to be the ones who adopt all of this technology. That's not actually the case. There's not a generational divide. In fact, younger workers, while they may be more comfortable with AI, they're actually a lot more concerned about AI because they see it as a potential threat to their jobs and just more to them having an opportunity to learn. So the people who are moving to build with AI aren't necessarily, Zach, I think you're maybe the exception to this rule, not always necessarily going to be the younger folks in the organizations. It could be folks that are more my age or even older, but they have a desire and a proclivity to get excited about learning something new and to try something. I think that's the other bit is it's the willingness to fail a little bit and to look a little bit stupid. Like I don't mind doing that because I know that it's iterative and that it's going to get better. And I think you and I both feel the same way about that.
And Gabe, we've talked about this, but you're not going to launch a 100%, ready to ship AI tool day one. You're going to continue to, iterate on this, build on this as well. And I feel like this is my biggest pet peeve. And we've talked about this in the podcast in the past. I feel like a lot of my generation goes to Twitter and is like, oh, can like AI build this? And it's like, yes, it can. And like they design something that looks nice. Can AI do this? Yes. Like we are well past, can AI do this? And it's a matter of, who's using AI to build this. And
Yeah, and again, this divide isn't generational, Zach. It's based on role type. It's based on, it's based more on disposition, in my view. And this is also where somebody who is further along in their career, like myself, I have context. That's the big part to me that allows me to build efficiently, is that context. So somebody who's, again, further along in their career, I've been working for, basically 25 years at this point in a professional quote unquote career. All that context comes up in helping me be able to be much more efficient with the things that I'm building. Now, this is also true for prompting. And I think the prompting piece of this helped me get to the point where I'm now at from a building perspective. But it's like those foundational kind of building blocks that helped me get to this point. A 23 no offense, although you're not 23, but a 23-year-old a 23-year-old AI user with no context can't necessarily do the same things that somebody who's a little bit more seasoned, if they have the proclivity to be able to go off and the disposition to go off and actually do some building.
I mean, Gabe, even with your experience, you could still go back to AI and say, hey, this is the way we've always done it. Find gaps in this process, or, find what I'm missing within this process. And it might give you a new way of thinking. But I think that, to your point there, the context throughout your career is valuable. The ROI model you mentioned you made, that's something that, we could hire someone, off LinkedIn today and have them build something, but they're missing the entire context of why or what we need to build the solution. Or if we went to a third party SaaS company as well to do that as well. And I think that's, well, you perfectly filled in that gap.
Well, and to go back to that example, you're right. We could go hire somebody, and maybe they're more of an AI expert than me, but they don't have that context. And that if you're one of these companies like the one that tried to sell us this $25,000 product that we were able to build in 2 hours, if you're not going out and finding those people with context and with the ability to build, you're going to be in a really tough spot as well, because all of a sudden that revenue stream is going to completely dry up because people inside the company with the disposition and, again, the lower barrier of entry from a technical perspective are just going to start doing this stuff on their own.
Long story long, we're not getting rid of Gabe anytime soon.
Well, you know what? Frankly, Gabe hopes he gets rid of Gabe. Not to talk about myself in the third person, but I don't want to continue to do the same things that I've been doing over and over again. Like, I know we've had a couple of these career conversations on here, Zach, and that's actually kind of why I wanted to have this conversation too. Is it feels like part of that career trajectory podcast that we've done in the past, where I've had a weird career. Like, my career has spanned a lot of different areas of the business. I started in accounting. I worked in finance. I worked in customer success. I worked in consulting services, and now I work in sales. And that has given me a really broad view of different parts of the business. But I've also been basically firing myself every few years from the things that I've been doing because I want to try something different. And I'm sure you're feeling this way too, but I feel like I've always been a high output person. And I think you're very much this as well, where you get a lot of work done in a relatively short period of time. But I will say, over the last 3 months, I feel like I have completely gone insane with the amount of work that I'm able to get done in a relatively short period of time. And now I'm even more efficient than I was even late last year.
We've become dangerous. I always tell people that I like to get things done yesterday, and AI has not helped that at all.
No, it has. Yeah, I mean, it's created this opportunity where you can very rapidly go and have this idea and make it into something. And you mentioned something earlier that I think is spot on. You're not going to have that perfect AI tool straight out of the gate. You're not going to have a perfect solution. That's okay. This is this is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I mean, there's no more apt description for where we're at right now. So it's how can we iterate quickly, get feedback, and keep tweaking this. And you mentioned Anthropic earlier and how quickly they're bringing things to market. That's exactly what they're doing too. They're getting this stuff into market, they're getting feedback, and then they're tweaking very rapidly based on the feedback that's coming back from this, very broad community of people that are building. Getting ideas around how people are actually using it and the tools that they're building, as you mentioned on their, on their Instagram and things like that, right? Like it's so iterative right now, and it has to be because of how fast these things are moving.
We need to build a segment for the podcast. Maybe our next ping episode is just what Gabe and Zack have built on Claude over the last 6 months. Cause I've got like a whole folder of like GitHub projects on my laptop now. And, it's, 2 of them are actually in the App Store, but hey.
I feel like such a nerd now that I have a GitHub repository and I'm like posting things to Verse. I can't even believe that this is my life now, but here I am.
Explaining version control to you a couple of weeks ago was like the highlight of my of my week.
I know. I'm leaning on Zack for his technical prowess on some of these things, but I do feel like I'm starting to get a little bit more dangerous as I do more of them. So let's shift this conversation a little bit. I want to talk about some broadband provider specific or adjacent examples here that I think are relevant. And I'm not saying all of these, we're not necessarily, saying that these are the best ones, or, I think these are just some good examples of, things that people could do. And what we're talking about here is, again, really creating a reusable template that works, a workflow that somebody else can run, a mocked up website that somebody can go into. One other one that I'm working on right now, Zach, I haven't even told you this one. We were having a conversation yesterday, trying to think about how we help our customers show up better in AI search mode, both in Google, in Perplexity, in ChatGPT, I know you're going to laugh at this one, but Bing, just because it's the default on a bunch of Windows computers, but it's like, okay, if customers are going out and searching for these things, how can we help our customers show up better? And not thinking about the algorithms and all of that stuff, but just what is the content that needs to live on their sites in order to kind of help with this. So I was building a very simple tool where we could take those results, paste them into a research tool, and have AI read through all of those search results and then actually provide some feedback back to the provider. That's another example of something where we've built it and other people can use it to kind of drive their business forward.
I don't know if we've talked about this much, but I think the SEO space is, I don't know how I want to say this. It's going to be very much impacted by AI, but in the most interesting way. And to your point right there, Gabe, that's perfect. That's exactly it.
Well, and it's also a good example of not being perfect. This isn't a tool that it can't automatically go out and run all of the search queries in AI search mode for you. Like there are some technical limitations in doing that, but if it gets you 90% of the way there, you're still going to get way better information than you would have in a world where you just weren't doing that at all.
Well, this is where you should implement the, this is a tool I've worked on. Within Cloudflare, they have a crawler API now, so it can go out and crawl different websites. And it's been very nice to see, okay, well, what's my competition doing in real time? Well, now we have this tool that can go out, crawl a website, return those results back on a weekly cadence or whatever that may be. Gabe, if you remember when ChatGPT came out like 2 years ago, it was like, oh, the most recent data is up to 2021 or 2020.
It's so funny you said that. I was just thinking about that yesterday and how insane it was that, yeah, I 2 or 3 years ago, these AI tools didn't have current context. It was baselined off of, a 3-month lag of what was sitting on the internet. Like, how crazy is that was where we were at not that long ago. I mean, I really think that was like 2 or 3 years ago. It was not that long ago.
That was back in our day, Gabe.
Back in our prime when we just started talking about this stuff. But it's so crazy. It's so funny you brought that up because I literally just had that thought yesterday. Okay, so I promised examples. Let's talk through examples. So here's a few examples that we can just talk through here. So I'm a marketing analyst working for a broadband service provider, and I go and build a prompt-based system to score campaign briefs before they go to my creative team, whether that's a creative team, whether that's a creative agency. And that I think that's a really good example of a simple build. This is something that you as the marketing analyst working for the provider, or you as the marketing person working for the provider, you have context. You have context of the internal conversations that are happening with the executive team. You have the context of customer conversations that you're probably hearing, as you're out talking to people in the community. Those are the things that can be built into a simple prompt to ensure that as you're building campaigns, as you're building these campaign briefs, before they go off to a creative agency or your creative team to create, sorry, that's saying create a lot in one sentence, but to develop, you're providing that context to them to make sure that they're building the right thing.
I'm sorry, I'm dying with your changing create to develop. That was so smooth, Gabe.
I tried, man. I'm trying to keep myself honest as we're going through here the podcast here.
I mean, even automating your marketing calendar, this was something that's been very manual in the past. What events are coming up? What have we historically done for this? When should we post? This is all things you could build into that tool. And if you're the marketer on the call, like you basically have this foundation already. It's just building it into that tool that you can use internally to, Gabe, maybe score those briefs or have those posts ready to schedule. If you really want to go a step further, have it schedule the post. Gabe, do you remember agent mode in ChatGPT when that came out? I had to go in and build out the Facebook ad. You don't even want to know what I've been doing with Claude Code lately with the updates this week, but you can get, dangerous to that extent.
For sure. But yeah, to your point, Zach, like start with some of the, even if it's some of the more basic stuff around scheduling and things like that. And then as you start to get more adept,
you got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
I mean,
we all have
we
to
just
start
said,
somewhere.
We just said you're not going to have a, 100%, perfect tool. And you get to a point where once you do have that 100% perfect tool, well, what's next? How can I take this a step further? And I think that's where we slowly evolved into the agentic part of AI, moving away from the prompts, enabling bypass mode in Claude Code. That's my new favorite drop down there. You grow into this space quickly.
Yeah. And this next example, I think, is a good example of that. I was thinking about, a sales rep, and this could be somebody who's going out and selling to small business. This could be somebody who's going and selling to enterprise. I think this is a good example of kind of where it makes sense to start and then how you can progress over time. So let's say that you're a sales rep and you're selling to small business or you're selling to enterprise, and you want to do some research, some structured research before you go out and actually have that conversation with the customer. I started doing this, I don't know, probably 6 months ago, where I was going out and I had a very structured prompt of what research I wanted to do before I was walking into a customer meeting. Well, now I've shared that prompt with others on my team so they can go off and do that same structured research. There's nothing stopping a salesperson from building that structure, building that prompt library, so to speak, and then providing that to others on your team as a way to support the activities that they're doing. So I think that could be a really good place to start, because it's still in the prompting world. It's not even necessarily in the building world, but you're building prompts and structure in a way that then maybe you try and make that more efficient going forward. And you build a really simple agent that says, okay, tell me the customer, tell me their website, tell me a little bit of information that you know about them. And then it's going to go off and do all of that research and provide you some great information back.
So Gabe, we've talked a lot about what you can do with AI here and what some of these examples are. We should talk a little bit about what's not building. And I think we've talked about this quite a bit here. Using ChatGPT, using Copilot. Oh my goodness, Copilot to rewrite your emails. I use Copilot to draft a lot of emails. It doesn't quite meet my tone, but it's a great starting point. And given the enterprise use case with Copilot, it's integrated into our system. So like there it is, I can use it. But that's not building.
Yeah. I mean, I know we could dump on Copilot a little bit, but I still find myself using the analyst and researcher agents quite frequently. And I do find it very beneficial for building agents. We didn't even talk about this, but we talked about it on previous episodes. But like, I built an ROI agent. I feel like all I do is build ROI agents. I built an ROI agent so people could ask questions of the agent and get better answers back and contextually relevant answers back based on transcripts that we loaded in there based on customer conversations. That's all built into Copilot because it's safe, it's within our walls, right? Like all of that stuff that becomes really important for those types of things. So I still think there's really good Copilot use cases that even go into the building area where you can start to build some of these agents, but it's certainly not as powerful at building completely bespoke, websites or bespoke tools like we've been talking about here as well, Zach.
Yeah, it's good for what it is, which isn't much. It's obviously very throttled down compared to some of these other agents. Microsoft's got to make some money here.
Mm-hmm.
Gabe, I think this one's interesting though. Summarizing documents though, do you do much of that? Like, do you use Copilot to summarize documents much, or where are we at there today?
What's funny is I feel like often when I'm summarizing a document with AI, it's because it's an AI document that is way too long. Like
That's
I
I can tell when someone sends me a document from
Yes.
Claude. If you're listening, you know who you are. But then I'm like reading through this and I'm like, oh, okay, like we're just gonna do an AI summary of an AI document. And then I'm like thinking of the flow chart, like where did we end up here?
Mm-hmm. This is the one thing that drives me crazy about AI is that it's so verbose in its responses. And oftentimes you'll get especially if you're using like the researcher agent in Copilot, you'll get like a 15-page document. Now, thank the good Lord that it started asking you, do you want a short report or do you want a long report when you're doing research, when you're using the researcher agent? So now often I'm using the short report.
Does not work. I'm telling you, I have clicked it and gotten the exact same. Whoever put that button there is just messing with me right now.
I will say I have said to it, like, write me a 1-page executive summary, very specific 1-page executive summary based on this, more detailed document. And it'll be like a 3 or 4-page executive summary. So I agree with you. It still struggles a little bit with summarization. But yeah, I that's the only use case I find for summarizing a document with AI is ironically when it's been written with AI and it's way too long. But again, to put a finer point on this, Zach, asking ChatGPT to write your email or asking Copilot to rewrite an email, using Copilot to autocomplete code you've written, summarizing a document with AI. These are not building use cases. They are using AI in tools that are already embedded. And I guess to that point, we could talk about this last one, but it sort of summarizes all these together. It's using those AI features that are embedded in Salesforce, embedded in HubSpot, or really any other SaaS application or product. If you don't understand what it's doing, then you're just using it. You're not building with it. And I think that's a really good distinction.
I think that's a great way to sum it up here, Gabe. And as we kind of wrap up on time here on the podcast, Gabe, I feel like this could be a 2-part episode now, but implications here. What's next after all of this AI discussion of building versus using?
Well, I think the reality is there's a couple of realities here. If you're not building, you're getting left behind. And just like compound interest, this is a compounding problem. Every day that goes by that somebody else is using AI to build, that could be a simple agent, it could be a workflow, it could be anything. But any day that goes by that you're not doing it and somebody else in your organization is, they're going to be way ahead of you. I'm curious to hear your perspective on this. I still feel like in most organizations, people are not necessarily being rewarded yet for AI building. But it's a bit of a long-term play for how do you become indispensable on a go-forward basis.
I think I agree, Gabe, and I've seen a lot of odd AI use cases. The product documentation one always comes up, and that one I'm more concerned with. If you build an agent inside your product and it can answer questions, I'm like, oh yeah, there's some value there. But what I'd rather do is Gabe, we work a lot with Engagement Cloud, build out, find these prospects, find these subscribers, execute campaigns. And again, the more agentic nature there. But I think the tools that help us get there, the people that can build these solutions, that's going to be key here. I don't need to surface documentation as much. It's not invaluable, but I think we're moving well beyond that here in 2026.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Yeah. And I think the career definition of what what quote unquote high performance is going to look like is going to shift as well. To your point, Zach, it's like, are you using it in the tools that are using it in just an embedded tool that already exists, or are you, are you actually creating with it? That AI fluency piece that we talked about, it's going to be table stakes on resumes, but it's also going to be a lot of BS, similar to what we were talking about with the Microsoft Excel. I'm a Microsoft Excel expert that's on everybody's resume.
What it is, Gabe, is it's how are you taking AI beyond a Google search? What value can you provide that, maybe Google can't? And I think that's where the line's kind of going to be drawn at a high level here. But like I said, Gabe, you got some fantastic tools in the pipeline. I'm always thinking of what's next. What could I build next? I'm always thinking of the next gym fitness app as well. So we'll keep that in mind as well.
Oh, that's hilarious. I know you're dying for more fitness apps. I do want to leave kind of a call to action for people, as we wrap this up and thinking about what they can do. So, I don't want to just throw out problems here and, not throwing out any sort of solution. But if you're thinking about, okay, what's the first thing that I can build? What should somebody actually do here? I would recommend that you think about what's one process that you do repeatedly that has friction. And it can be anything. Just think about your business, think about what that process is, and try to build an AI-powered version of it. Not just take the process and throw it into AI and, see whatever spits out, but, what's a repeatable tool that you could use that actually creates some benefit and removes some of the friction. And once you've done that once, then you'll start to see how easy some of this stuff is. And then you can start to tackle some of those other business use cases as well.
Or you'll spend the next 2 days debugging against your Claude limits. But Gabe,
yeah, exactly.
me, I love to build things, and AI has not only made it faster, but really made it easier to bring these tools into market.
Yeah, and I know I said this was the last thing, and then I thought of one more thing. The other thing, I don't know if you hate this term, Zach. I kind of hate it, but build in public. Like, I feel like mostly founders who have no funding and are scraping by are the ones who say it. But I do think there's some validity to it, which is making your work visible. Like, you've got to put yourself out there a little bit when you've started building these things to, one, get feedback, as we were talking about earlier, but two, just like, am I on the right path? Like, does this make sense? And you've got to put yourself out there a little bit and be okay with people maybe not getting it, or people not necessarily understanding, or people pushing back against it. But that's all good feedback. Even negative feedback is still good feedback because it gives you an understanding of, am I on the right path or am I not? So that is something I would encourage people to do as they're going through and doing these initial trials, or whatever. I hate to, maybe that's a terrible word, but it's the proof of concepts, maybe is a better way to say it. Is to start sharing that with other people in your organization. Find somebody you can trust, like Zach and I have with each other, where we're like, hey, I'm working on this, what do you think? And then he'll push back on me and be like, ooh, well, did you think about these 5 other things? And I think we've done a good job of kind of pushing each other in that way, but doing it in a positive and supportive way, instead of just dumping on the projects that we keep creating.
I need my own AI agent that gives Gabe feedback on his projects.
I've told you that I changed my settings in Claude to be like meaner, and now Claude is super mean to me, and I kind of feel bad about myself. But every once in a while, when I do land on a really good idea and Claude's like, oh, that's a good idea, then I know it's actually a good idea because it's been pushing back on me throughout the entire thing. So that's another thing. Maybe change the settings in the AI tools that you're using so they'd be a little bit more of a jerk to you.
That's so funny. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Buffering. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app and share it with your friends and colleagues. And for more insights and updates, be sure to connect with Gabe and I on LinkedIn.